you as possible. So with that, I want to introduce our first panelist. Today, we have Neil Harrison joining us, who's the Global Chief Claims Officer for Aon. So Neil, give us some thoughts on this, this innovation lockdown that we're freeing ourselves from these days.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the chance to speak with you and obviously with the broader group. I thought I would make some very high-level introductory comments really on the topic and just sort of explain to everybody a little bit about the way we think about innovation as a firm and frankly within that how I think about innovation personally. And I'll start by saying that, you know, we think about the challenge as making sure that innovation is focused truly on the client. Right? I think if we as an industry take a step back sometimes and look at ourselves, some of the things that we perhaps try to do for innovation might actually be a little bit more about us than they are about our customer. I think sometimes we might do a little bit internal, a bit of internal navel gazing and think to ourselves, how can I improve a process for me? How can I use technology that's perhaps very cool because I want to feel better about myself? And I do think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that out there somewhere is the person who really matters, which is the client or the customer. So we bring a lot of focus to what we call voice of the client in all of our innovation thinking, and we try and line up our investments, both resource and obviously capital around that. Look, I think we all represent an industry that still hasn't achieved the meeting of some very significant unmet need, some big macro themes, whether it's climate, whether it's wealth gap and so on and so forth. And so we're very focused on product and process to sort of underpin the movement of us as a firm and the industry more broadly in that direction as well. But I think also we have to recognize that we need to earn the right. Right, and what I mean by that is that as innovators, our customer base, our clients, take a look at us and they may say, okay, get the fact that you want to solve big macro issues and big process issues as an industry, and that's great, and we want to come on that journey with you, but do your day-to-day products and services really achieve fit-for-purpose goals, right? And if you look at certain product lines, whether it's cyber, whether it's business interruption, you can probably name a few, have those products, our core products, really evolved innovatively enough to meet client need today? And I think unless we as a group, as an industry, can really solve for that, again, I'm sort of challenged sometimes to think how we can truly ask our clients to come with us on the macro journey. So I think earning the right is a key theme I would share with the group. One of the challenges we have had as an organization, I think similar to many others, is how do you innovate at scale, right? And so for us, we think about innovation in two ways: the proverbial ground up or bottom up innovation, which is almost the evolutionary improvement of process or of outcome. And then we think about the revolutionary side, right? How do you truly bring a new product, a new service into the client community? For us as a global firm, like some of the other panelists, the challenge often is how do you lift something from Asia that's working spectacularly well and bring it to North America and replicate and expand the benefit? So we have a somewhat a bifurcated process around innovation at scale for a specifically dedicated group within our organization called the New Ventures Group. Prior to that, our challenge, quite frankly, was we asked people to be innovators on the bus on the way home. Or, at the end of the day, could you all spend 20 minutes being innovative? And we did some good things, but it was incremental. But the approach we now take is specific dedication of resource to allow us to innovate at scale. I think the last thing I would say as an introductory comment is we all, I think as firms, try to differentiate through our innovation. But some of the innovation that we need to do requires partnership, right? And so as a large broking organization, we look at the major carriers, the major insurers, adjusting companies and others as innovation partners. Because I think collectively, things we can do together, again, around technology, process, data sharing, insight sharing, the more we partner, the more we can actually collectively raise the bar of the product and the service that we deliver to customers. And so I think sometimes we do need to sort of park our traditional perspectives of each other as competitors, intermediaries, vendors, and suppliers, and say that if we're really going to be innovative as an industry and together, we have to do it together and as partners. So some big themes there, Brian, just to sort of kick the conversation off, but hopefully of some use as you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm a big culture values person. So when I hear things like earning the right and the way that you talk about partnership, which I think really ties to that, right? It's thinking differently about our position in this industry, in the value chain between the clients and the insurers and the partners and everyone, and less about us against them and protecting ourselves against, and instead coming together, because as an industry, we need to move forward. So absolutely of value. Yeah, spot on. Thank you for that, Neil. Next, I want to invite Doug Kratzer to speak. Doug is Vice President of Claims for the Hanover Insurance Group, where he looks after personal auto and commercial general liability. Doug, take it away.
Sure, thanks. I'm gonna focus the conversation around three things: customer experience strategies, what we've learned or how we approach innovation, and then what I think really is the key to making all this work is around leadership, right? And innovation is key in driving service efficiencies. We found that some of the innovation investments that we made were really critical during the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, we leveraged the use of drones and aerial imagery to quickly investigate property losses, and that was a big lift for us. Our digital appraisal app and those partnerships we had with our direct repair program allowed us to leverage some straight-through processing, and because it was a time where we were worrying about the safety of our customers and our employees, we were able to leverage our photo app and allow our customers to provide their own self-service in taking those photographs and allowing us to write estimates. And then, based on claim type, on-site visits aren't always necessary, but sometimes they're needed to investigate a loss. And it was really helpful having links and apps and photo sharing and real-time video options to our customers. I know in the commercial general liability space, being able to do some real-time video with our customers to interact and investigate our losses and to be able to take photographs of the very area or the evidence that we needed to gain to be able to document our file was really important. But in the customer experience strategies, today's customers expect more. They expect instant and efficient communication mediums. They're less patient with our traditional insurance processes. Companies are offering streamlined processes and self-service technology are ultimately going to win. Multi-line insurance carriers serve a wide range of customers with varying levels of digital sophistication. And if you shift that approach to our talent, that's critical in servicing our customer. And so we see the importance of a strong shared foundation among our claim staff, and that comes with training. And that training is across all levels of our organization, from the front lines right to the leadership team. And to deliver the highest levels of service possible, we found that empathy seems to be the key component. So we focus most of our training around truly understanding the customer journey and listening to the customer and responding with empathy. And our organizational workflows and our dedicated teams contribute to this customer experience. We believe our claims organization operates with a culture of empowerment, accountability, and flexibility to be decision makers in their key areas. And I think reducing that hierarchical approach allows us to respond in a more agile and efficient manner. And then the final point I'll make, which I think is really the most important one and the one I have probably the most passion around, is the key to driving innovation in claims is leadership, right? And so we need to approach leadership a little differently than society has in the past. Today's group of employees they have different expectations, and we can no longer wait for these employees to spend 5 to 10 years learning all the things they need to do to gain that experience to be effective. And this could be in using tools to help narrow down the decisions and really bend that learning curve. So we need to develop and implement tools and data analytics that can help develop and train and empower our employees more efficiently. Our workforce is really early in career. And we need those tools to augment those decisions and those analytics to really help them make better decisions in the process.
Yeah, oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just I was thinking about the customers and the employees. They're all doing the same things outside of work, using the same tools, having the same expectations and comfort with digital. So great point to bring in that employee view too, because they're having the same changes in their lives that your customers are.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned our employees. I mean, it's we have to develop that talent for the future, right? And so, giving those employees those experience to stretch their skill sets and encouraging them to participate in cross-functional projects. When we describe our philosophy for talent development, it used to traditionally we would talk about how you can get ahead by going up the ladder, and now we talk about a broader experience across as much of the organization as we can. We can model agile innovation through bringing in external perspectives to shape our thinking. Many of our leaders went through an innovation training with MIT, and we placed a strong emphasis on incorporating leadership into our overall corporate values. And the other thing we can do, we can ask a lot of questions and invite and listen to those diverse perspectives before we reach decisions. And I think my final point is, we learned this a long time ago. The best way to resolve a business problem is first to understand it, create objectives and guiding principles around how to solve it. But then, you need to engage that frontline claims team in developing and implementing that solution. This has helped us. Frontline teams have developed most of the answers to the problems we face, and they've worked those solutions through with the guidance of leadership. But that's typically, I think, a little bit of a reverse order, right, from the ground up. But this reduction in the layers of leadership really engages the front line and empowers them to think innovatively and drive the change that we feel is necessary. And so I think the final point is empowering your workforce is really the key, I think, to the future success.
Yeah, it's a great point. And we just had a question come in on that. So it's a nice reminder that you should be posting your questions. Use the Q&A function. We've had a couple hitting the chat. Just make sure you put it in Q&A rather than chat so we can get to it. Thank you very much, Doug.
You're welcome.
I think this, the dual way of looking at it's not just your customers or clients, as Neil was talking about. It's not just your employees. It is both. And how are you bringing them together? Future state and leadership and growth and development, and not just up the ladder of the one function that historically maybe is how we did it. So great points. Next, I'd like to turn to Daniel Peregrina, who joins us as Claims VP and Head of Claims Digital Transformation and Personal Lines for Latin America for Chubb Insurance. Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Brian. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I hope everybody's and their family are safe. I think we are living today this unique moment in history, right? Globally, everybody going through the same challenges. Most of us working from home. I used to say at the beginning that I started work from home. Now it feels like I'm living in the office. So it's been challenging times, but in those challenging times, human beings always find opportunities, right? And I think this is a great time in history for innovation. We see in the shelves great technologies that we can use to build innovation. We have now artificial intelligence. We have robots. We have tools such as the one we are talking now in this webinar, where insurance companies are using to do virtual actions. We have now, even for automobile, we are very close to get solutions where they can do appraisal using artificial intelligence to appraise the cars. So we have technologies where we can monitor customers' behavior when they are submitting a claim in a digital platform. So now we live in a moment, it's been like 20 years in this industry. Now we see those types of technologies that help train on the innovation, but technology is just part of that. And then I heard what Doug was saying about leadership. This is a very important component, how you use those technologies to create something anew. And another point that I want to make here that I think it's very important, and I talk a lot within my organization, is that human beings, when we work for so many years, like you have human beings processing claims, like robots getting a file, do the most that you can. Now we actually have robots, and having said that, we need to start using human beings to what human beings are capable of, to work with the creation part of it, to create, innovative, to work with our customers. If we don't have that, we will be extremely robotic in our industry. So I think it's a great time to look leadership and look people differently. Also, we talk about diversity a lot today. So it's I feel thrilled on the moment that we are living to follow doing what they do best and have the human beings in what they do best.
That's great. Thank you, Daniel. And yeah, we need the technology and think about how it augments our skills and let our people do the things that rise up their value add and not just replace them, because there's so much more that humans can do. So yep. Thank you for that. Marcel Gordon from Shift Technologies, VP of Product there, is up next to share some thoughts with us from the provider side, and someone who we had a question about decision support systems, and that's some of the things that Shift gets into. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And a lot of the things that have been said already, I really agree with. It's really about a focus on customer experience, and you've got to bring the organization along. I just wanted to add a few more thoughts from the kind of tools and technology point of view. Shift as a company, if you look at Brian's book about the future of insurance, I think we form very much on the side of believing that the future of insurance has a lot of the same carriers as we have today. And we see our mission as enabling them with technology. All right, so we want to bring them along into this future, which is why I'm here. And so I just wanted to add a few thoughts about how to use these tools, right? How concretely these can have a positive impact on your organization and on your customer experience. The first point is to say that you really want to make sure that the tools are not creating barriers within your organization. The tools, at the end of the day, your organization is focused on the same thing, right? If we talk about claims, we always talk about trying to make claims simple, fast, and fair. And that's not just the job of one team, it's the job of all the teams that work in claims, whether it's claims handling or subrogation or fraud detection. And so when we build tools, we're really trying to build them in a way that everybody is still working together on that ultimate goal. You don't want to be in a situation, for example, where a claim gets thrown over the fence to the fraud team and then disappears. And you don't want to be in a situation where the fraud team feels like they're the only people who care about fraud. And it's even worse if it's the tools that are creating that problem. So these tools really need to be integrated and they need to speak to each other. I think that's a really important first step. The second one is that we find that it really helps for our customers. We talk about our customers as partners. I think Neil's points about partnerships are points that I really agree with. When we talk to our partners, we really encourage them to start with a concrete solution to a concrete problem. There's a lot, when we talk about technology, people talk about big concepts like AI, and people have platforms and technologies that can do a lot of things ultimately. But you can get lost in that. Right? You can get lost in the potential, you can boil the ocean. And so we tend to focus on a concrete problem, and it enables people to show a win and to show that the technology can really help. And on the way, you end up transforming a little bit the business, right? Because if you want to succeed in fraud detection or claims automation, you have to make improvements to your technology and to the way you handle data, and you have to change your organization. And these things have an impact. And if you can gradually add win after win after win, you get to something that actually becomes really transformative. And so you can describe it as disruption through evolution, just to blur the lines a little bit from Brian's language. And that really is a concrete strategy, right? It's going up a staircase rather than trying to take the elevator. And the third thing I wanted to add is I really, the points, some of them I think have already been touched on a little bit, but I really want to share my support. I think the tools in the organization have to evolve in lockstep. You can't imagine that you can simply throw new tools into an existing unchanged organization. And you don't want to end up with an organization that feels like the tools aren't there to help them, right? That they work for the tools rather than the tools working for them. Ultimately, you want your teams to feel like owners of the mission of helping the customer, and the tools are just there to help, right? The tools are there to make them faster. And the way we talk about that sometimes is that really you want the tools, if we talk about, say, claims automation, if you want to apply AI to the claims handling problem, you want the tools to feel like a really good intern who can explain to you what they're doing and can really help with some of the basic tasks, and not like some kind of magic 8-ball where you spin the dial and you see what happens. It needs to be built for people.
Yeah, technology for technology's sake versus actually looking at what's going on and finding that solution. I appreciate that, Marcel. And I think actually it leads to the first question I wanted to hit on really well, because when we talk about connecting with our people, employees and clients, insureds, brokers, partners, et cetera, in a world where connecting with people is very different from how it used to be. Maybe some of us in the startup space were used to Zoom all the time, but for the industry as a whole, this is different. Neil, I know London market, everyone you could possibly need to see is kind of within 10 minutes of each other. And now it's irrelevant. I mean, I guess we're all instantly around each other. But this question came in that I think is relevant for all of us. And it's, how do we manage innovation with people working from home? And that's not just employees, that's everyone. So is it easier? Is it harder? What are some of the tools? And Neil, I'd start with you because you do sit in this multi-party connection point in the industry.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, and I don't think there's an easy answer to it. So I think elements of the innovation process, quite frankly, are easier in the environment that we're all living in right now, because even though some of us probably feel like we're working 23 out of every 24 hours because of time zones and everything else, we are all sort of fundamentally available, right? And so what we have found is our ability to bring together people who are relevant, who may be sitting in Asia, others who are sitting in North America, people who are sitting in Europe, to bring that group together through this sort of forum, this sort of medium, to have the brainstorming that underpins a lot of innovation, to have the challenges, and the devil's advocate approach to what innovation can look like. You're actually able to bring a lot more people into the party, if you will, than in the normal business world, let's say, where we all try and arrange a meeting and then we all try and justify the costs involved in traveling to location X to get together. So I think there's benefit in that regard. I think the challenge, quite frankly, is at the end of the day, relationships do matter, and that ability to sit in the same room shouldn't be underestimated, right? And so, there is definitely, it's a different form of personal connection through a camera than it is in the same room. So again, I think there are advantages and disadvantages, but we would say, frankly, looking back over this period of time, or looking at the time we're still in, that ability to bring everybody from everywhere to solve for a problem is actually extremely helpful for us on a multidiscipline, multi-geography, multicultural, fully diverse kind of basis.
Yeah. It's not all good. It's not all bad. It's a mix, right? Doug, given that you have both personal lines and commercial lines claims coming through your team, how has this affected you from the internal side and the external side?
To do with the impact from innovation wise, yeah. Yeah,
and just given that people are separated, and from the customer involvement side, you have a wide range. Like CGL, it's litigated threats of litigation versus body damage to my car, and of course there's liability there as well.
Right. I probably echo what Neil said, at least when you think tactically of the tools and whether we're able to collaborate and communicate effectively. I mean, we found that we prepared several years ago for some real flexible work arrangements anyways, because we wanted to because our employees were demanding it. And from a retention standpoint, you want to be able to do that. We found these tools in both internal, external communicating, specifically in the meeting space. We've stayed really connected during COVID-19. I think most of the feedback we get from our employees is this is a really great way to have meetings. It creates a bit more, there's a bit of fairness. Everybody has to participate. Nobody can hide in a meeting, and I don't know what the others experienced, but part of our meetings were half the people were in the room and half the people were on the phone. And if you're on the phone, that's a terrible experience. But I think from my personal perspective with my team, we've gotten closer. We've actually been able to have more effective communication. We feel more connected. And I think our customers have experienced that too, right? I mean, I think employees, there's good and bad about being at home or being in the office. At home, hopefully, if you don't have kids or dogs or like I do in the background all the time, you're a bit less distracted. You can focus on what's in front of you. Customers are pretty understanding because they recognize everybody's in the same situation. And same it's pretty similar to the commercial lines and the personal lines. But also Neil made another good point is you can't take away that, you can't get rid of that in person. When you really want to collaborate or have a strategic conversation, or really you have a difficult issue with a policyholder or something, there's nothing better than sitting down in person and being able to do that, right? And so I think what we've learned is there's a happy medium between all that we're doing right now. But we can't do all of one or all of the other. I think we've learned that we're going to have to blend it going forward.
Yeah. Daniel, what about for you? And you have multiple geographies that you're looking after. So how does the separation affect, and maybe it's back to Neil's point that it's not all bad. Maybe it's been helpful in some ways.
Hi, Brian. No, the question is regarding, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah. So how has innovation been affected by the fact that we are all, working from home? And I'm curious from your perspective with Chubb, given that you cross multiple geographies in Latin America, have you seen it be helpful? Because now everyone is, to Neil's point, suddenly you can bring people together that maybe would have had travel planning and other complexities to it. Has it been good, bad? What are some of the ways you're dealing with this?
I think for now has been really good, but I think this is something that doesn't last, right? I think that everybody working from home, it's being important. We are learning how to connect with people remotely. Something that I always talk in my meetings is not only talk to people on meetings, just grab your phone, have a quick call, ask how they are handling everything. So you don't lose everything that we had when we have in the office, right? That is those times where you go to the break room, have a conversation, get a coffee. Those moments, they are almost done, and they are very important. So we keep the relationship and the communication. So I think in a short period of time, it's been good. People are working well. They've been more productive, but I think that this is not something that can last. People need human interaction to feel good to perform their work.
Yeah. There's something magical about just getting a phone call. Like it's it's kind of nice, right? When you're not on a video screen with 30 other faces. So yeah, it sort of makes it more human and casual, like the break room experience. I love that. Marcel, you have a global footprint. You have carriers that are trying to be innovative in lots of different contexts. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I share a lot of the thoughts. There's good and bad. I think it's increased the flexibility. People are more available because there's not the burden of having to do it in person and having to get everybody in the same physical room. But we share definitely, like we're maybe a different kind of company in the sense that we're a bit younger as an organization and a bit younger as a team probably. But we definitely miss seeing each other in person, and you miss the bandwidth, that kind of intangible thing of getting in a room and brainstorming. And innovation is a big part of our business. So that hurts. I do really think that for some people it's been a revelation, because in an office context, there's some people who stand out just because of who they are. They're the ones who are chatting with everybody, and they're kind of visible and loud, and they do really well in an office environment. But when everybody's at home, it's really about delivery, right? Who gets stuff done. And so some of the people that maybe weren't so noticeable before have become noticeable because they're just doing great work. And so maybe it's leveled the playing field a little bit in that sense.
Yeah.
Not exactly about innovation, but I think it's important to recognize that different people in the team can bring different things, and we maybe start to understand that giving them different tools and context can help them to bring what they can bring.
Yeah, no, I think it is about innovation, because diversity of thought is one of the biggest drivers of innovation. And so when you take out the introversion, extroversion spectrum from who's participating and who isn't, yeah, you may find things that you never would have seen. There's an example from the auto industry where design teams, I'm a car guy, so it's very interesting to me, but design teams are producing work like they've never seen before, just beautiful designs. People who might have one or two things a year are turning stuff out, and it's quality from work from home, because they're just it's a different context. They're not being overpowered, or it's interesting. Not necessarily better or worse completely, but new possibilities perhaps. So I think it does matter. Neil, I know we only have 15 or so minutes of your time still, so I want to make sure that we start the next one with you. And I think this is interesting, is what technology implemented in the pandemic do we think is here to stay? And what do we think might be discarded, or when I'm not using the term the new normal, but some form of previous life where we see each other and interact comes back, might we veer away from again?
Yeah, very good question. I think some of the technologies that we've used inside our firm, but also with business partners and more importantly with clients around meeting forums and everything else, will undoubtedly be here to stay, right? I think that's absolutely the case. I think, and I look at our experience through this period of time, I'm not sure that we've done anything technologically that is not going to stay with us into the future. Have we tried one or two things along the way that haven't necessarily been optimal? Probably, but would I consider those to be full-scale implementations? Absolutely not. We've been pretty successful through this period of time in achieving some of our own data and digitization goals anyway. Moving forward with business platforms, putting in place, again, sharing technologies, but also, a big thing in our world has been decision support, which I know is a phrase that's come up a couple of times. And how do we make sure that we deliver institutionalized opinion rather than personal opinion? One of the questions we get a lot as a broking organization from our client base is, so I'll be very simplistic today, who's the best carrier for me? And, we run all sorts of performance statistics on the carrier community and so on and so forth. The historical way that we would answer that question will be based on the personal opinion of that individual broking colleague or claims colleague who is sitting at their desk, and that opinion will be driven by what they saw yesterday, right? So a lot of our effort over, coincidentally in many ways through the pandemic period, but also a year or so prior, has been how do you move away from that anecdotal individual view and deliver enterprise-wide opinion, perspective, and everything else. And we've been pretty successful, despite the pandemic, again, in making that a part of our DNA. And we're not going to move away from that, right? And so, again, I look back and I don't see us discarding anything we've done technologically through this period of time. I do see us bringing the pendulum back a little bit into the center and saying there are some things that we have used technology for that we will replace with, the telephone or the in-person meeting or, the off-site session, those kind of things. But yeah, I think that would probably be the Aon perspective on this.
Yeah, but the claims adjudication, the decision-making, the advanced analytics and intelligence, those things are here to stay. They're not filling in the gap until...
No, I think that's right. I think it's been a period that's proven the value of the strategy that we have. It's probably accelerated it. It's probably convinced a few cynics, right? That not that there are any cynics in the claims world, but if there were, people who've done things in a certain way for a number of years who never thought that you could do some of these things technologically, well, we have, and it's tough to disprove that. And so I think there's probably been an acceleration to a certain extent, and also affirming that these things are here to stay.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Marcel, I saw you nodding your head around the whole, it's the last thing that they saw that influences it, which is really the issue with fraud, with a lot of reserving and judgment decisions and adjudication. It's either, even if you've seen 1,000 claims in your at least what stays in your memory, you're still basing all your judgment on those 1,000 claims and probably just the last few. And that's a lot of what the kind of intelligence and modeling that Shift works on tries to overcome. Has that been more front and center in the conversations you guys have been having, or as you look in your role at the product development itself and where it's headed, especially now?
Yeah, I was laughing because of my job as a product manager. It's when I talk to my team about how we build products that are really going to help insurers to improve their business. It's one of the things I stress, right? It can't be about the last person you talk to, because there's always going to be a next person that you talk to. And but yeah, I totally agree that if we look at how we work with insurers, one of the things that we talk about every time we talk about the ability to use AI on these problems is the ability to bring in a very wide and objective lens to the data and to your history, right? To the decisions that you've made and that you need to make in the future. We sometimes, I mean, we get to a whole separate topic, but often when we talk about AI, we tend to think of it as like a person, right? And in this case, the benefit of the person is that they've seen everything, right? Or at least they've seen everything that you have data on, which can be a challenge for some insurers, but they've seen everything that you've recorded in your organization. And so they can really bring a different level of insight. And so, yeah, absolutely. When we talk about escaping from that, the bias of a single decision maker, we talk about having outcomes that are more fair for the customer, right? Ultimately, what we want is not to avoid paying a claim that should be paid. What we want is to treat every customer fairly. The objective, even in fraud detection, is to pay the right claims.
Yeah.
And so we want to really bring that fairness through objective analysis.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's not, despite what some insurance haters may think, it's not for us to get out of paying claims. It's to pay the right amount on the right claims always. Yeah, Daniel, I see you want to jump in with a point.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen this year regarding what we are discussing now is when I've never been in so many sales meetings than before. When you talk with new sponsors, they are more than ever interested in know how claims will provide service and what is the technology that you have. So everything that we are going to, those sponsors before, like a bank, for instance, where they were more concerned about the premium and how many they can sell, etc. Now they are concerned how you're going to serve my client, that is going to be our client. So never been so many of those meetings presenting digital solutions. And what I think that is going to happen now that we are kind of boarding in this no back, that there's no way to back anymore in this new technology and innovation, people will start expecting more and more. Like you buy a cell phone this year and you are curious to know what the new cell phone functionalities will be, right? I mean, what they will come up with. So I think clients and sponsors, they will always expecting, okay, what they can do more, better and better with innovation and technology.
Yeah, it's a great point. Doug, I'm going to flip it to you, but just in case we lose Neil while you're talking, I do want to thank Neil. Great perspective from Aon and your global view. So thank you for what you've added to the conversation today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Doug, the conversation's morphed a bit, but do you think there are things that will go away? Are there decision support tools or something else as the conversation's evolved?
Yeah, it's I think what the pandemic did is validated the investments we made in technology were the right ones. Our perspective at Hanover, the transition from taking our workforce out of the office and migrating them home literally in a handful of days and not to miss a beat from a service or production was really key. And that was because technology matters, right? And all this technology we're talking about, you really know that I don't know how Neil or Daniel think about this, but a little bit of nerves when we thought about having to migrate our people from an office environment where we can control technology to home. Is it going to work? Is their internet going to work? Are they going to be able to, use the phone services through the laptop? So I think it validated a lot of the technology investments we've made, and that we're able to be this flexible. The decision support tools. I guess I'm with Neil again. I think everything that we're doing didn't really change because of what we just experienced. I think most of the technology and the decision support tools is really about getting rid of manual processes, leveraging technology where we can actually help adjusters be more efficient, make better decisions, get more consistent outcomes. Leveraging data and analytics to do that is really important. And I know I mentioned before, our workforce, we got to attract the right talent to our workforce. And the way we handle claims, the way we grew up handling them, isn't really an exciting, sexy way to do that, right? And so we have a workforce that's coming in that expects to use tools and technology. They're doing things at home in their own personal lives that are far more technologically advanced than maybe what they're going to be doing at work. That's bad for us, right? How do we retain those people? And so all of this digital transformation and these, it's important for the future for all aspects, right? Service, people, retention, and delivering better outcomes. And I will say one thing. I've been home since March 15th. I think I've been in the office about 5 times. One thing that will go away is paper. I haven't printed anything in the last 6 months. And I'm surprised because I have a lot of paper on my desk back in my office. And for some reason, I've learned how not to use it. I don't need it anymore. So I don't know what everybody else's experience with that is, but.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I do think what you're hitting on with employee engagement really is important, not just for keeping them, but, and we've lost Neil, keeping them engaged, right? We don't ever want this to just be a paycheck. So someone had asked a really interesting question of whether anyone, and it can be a no, that's fine, but has anyone ever tried to relate employee engagement to customer engagement or net promoter score or customer sat, things like that, and seeing that connection? Because of course, engaged employees putting their heart and soul into the work will more likely bring about a positive customer experience as well. Is that something you guys have looked at all? If anyone wants to jump in specifically.
Yeah, hi, Brian. I can talk a little bit about that. As I said, the connection between humans are essential in our business. At the end of the day, we are people serving people. We can put a lot of technology in the middle, but we are the ones designing the technology. How people engage, it became a little bit more complicated as you are not close to the person, so you don't see what is going on with that person, if she's engaged or not. Now you have to trust the numbers that you see on your computer saying how many claims that person could adjudicate in a day, but that doesn't mean much. And always you should not just understand the final result. You have to understand the root causes of things, right? So when you approach a person, and you have to do that equally with everybody, but each one is unique, and you have to know how to handle each of your people to understand what they need, right? And how to engage them to this moment. So I think it's very important to keep this human connection, as I said, through a phone call, and keep close to the people that works with you.
Yeah. Doug, Marcel, anything to add on this question?
Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry,
Marcel.
go on.
You're both engaged. It's good. Marcel, you want to jump in?
Yeah, that might.
Okay. I just wanted to go back to the initial comment, which is that employees are having a different experience at home, and so we need to provide tools which are up to scratch in the enterprise. And I completely agree, but there's an interesting aspect which people sometimes overlook, which is that there's people coming into the workforce now that may never have had a PC at home, right? In fact, that they grew up on the couch with a tablet or a mobile phone. And so when you put them in front of a point and click application like Salesforce or or Guidewire, which are good modern applications that if you grew up with a PC, you probably understand. But for these people, they're new, right? It's not necessarily logical for them. And so we need to keep, as well as striving for a strong technology experience in the workforce, we need to keep adjusting our idea of what people's expectations are, because they're changing over time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Everyone's, customers and employees, absolutely. Whether you're a software company or a carrier or anyone else. Doug, do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's pretty broad topic, but it's interesting when Marcel talks about that. I mean, we have people coming into the workforce today who don't understand why we're not emphasizing or providing a bunch of functionality to be able to text with their customers, because that's how they communicate, right? And so, or payment optionality where they're Venmoing money back and forth between all the things they do, and why can't we do that in the workplace, right? And so there's a huge balance of modernizing and transforming those tools and those claim processes to align with the experience of what the employees want to be able to do from an interacting with each other and their customers. And so it is, and of course, we just don't move fast enough, right, in the insurance industry to be able to incorporate these things. But the workforce is changing faster than we're modernizing, and therein lies, I think, some of the challenges for the future.
Yeah, I just fired up Venmo yesterday to request payment for something, and there was a little banner ad asking me to set up direct deposit of my paycheck, which just would never have occurred to me. But I suppose if you live financially through something like that, why not have the money feed in there? So it just goes to show, the way that their lives are changing. We have to think about keeping pace with that, and they're going to have expectations on top of the customer expectations, and that leads to a lack of engagement. So, yeah. That said, I don't know if I'm ready for direct deposit a paycheck into Venmo, but maybe younger.
Brian,
yeah.
Brian, so I just wanted to say, I think that actually segues into the question that's in the list about Lemonade.
That was the next one I was going to get to. I didn't want to name them specifically, but because it's one example, and it's a good one. And thank you to Justin Fowler for the question. But yeah, the idea that there are others out there, not just our customer expectations and not just our employees, but now there's a new generation of carriers that come from a tech first mindset, have a different speed of doing things, and they're meeting, or in some cases defining, some of those customer experiences. And there's another question further down that's come in about other places that insurance is being sold. And the mention there is about car companies. Tesla's made a lot of noise about launching an insurer and the reasons why. So all these other places that risk is going to get transferred, what does that mean for us? Because they have a different set of mentality, tools, et cetera, to meet those expectations or redefine them. How do we respond as an industry? So yeah, Marcel, thank you for teeing that up. You get to jump in first then, from a different perspective than the carrier side.
Hey, thanks. So I think the first thing to say is that I don't think in general it's really Lemonade that's setting those expectations, or companies like Lemonade, because most people haven't actually experienced Lemonade or any of those other kind of new carriers, right? They're still very small. I think what's setting those expectations is the rest of their digital life. And that's what we really have to keep up with. I think obviously I have a strong bias here, but I would go back to Neil's comments at the start, right? Part of this is about partnership. I think the reason that the future of the insurance industry looks a lot like the present of the insurance industry in terms of the people who are involved is because insurance companies have some incredible capabilities around risk management and defining products and distribution that are very hard to build, and it's going to take a long time for anybody to really compete at that level. And so what they need to make sure that they do is bring the capabilities that they don't have in through partners. Obviously, providers like Shift is one example, but there's other ways to bring in that kind of expertise. But I think it has to be an active strategy.
Yeah, and that goes exactly to one of Neil's opening points, is taking a different view of these things, who we partner with, how we team up, and that may be a direct competitor. We've seen some carriers, State Farm and USA getting together on the subrogation side to build a blockchain solution. who would have thought, you know, those two in doing something together where they should be head to head, right? They should be competing against each other, not partnering. But I think Neil and Marcel, you bring this as well. We need to think differently about how we're going to solve these various problems, because it's not going to happen one-off, carrier by carrier, or tech provider by tech provider with something you buy, right? It's a different mindset. Doug, I'm curious from your take on this.
Yeah, you know, you raise a really good point that I'm sure we all struggle with, is choosing that vendor partner is really important, right? So specifically, smaller companies that can't build this stuff themselves or don't have the R&D or the dollars to do it, you really have to make sure that your choice of vendor selection is important. And so we get inundated with InsurTech. I don't know. I hate to think how many reach outs a day I get from 5 to 10 people, and I can't answer them all. And so I think
are all spelled really fun.
Yeah, that's true.
Using the alphabet.
You know, I look to the vendor partners that I have long-term relationships with and make sure that they're staying abreast of what's going on in the industry. And, you know, I'm sure they're looking at some of the creative InsurTech ideas or ways of doing business or technology that's coming out and figuring out which ones are viable and which ones aren't, so that they can literally either buy them or develop their own tools and technology to be able to provide that to us. And so it takes a little bit of the risk out. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't partner with somebody new. It's just there's so much to choose from that I think that vendor selection is really important, right?
But Doug, can I dig into that a little more? Because there's a question that comes from Rhonda Smith that's been in the Q&A for a little while, and I was trying to see how do we bring this in, but it hits on another major topic that's been front and center right now around diversity and inclusion. And so Rhonda's representing a newer vendor that's also minority owned, and wondering, how does a new provider get in the mix for consideration? Are there things that a vendor, a provider can do, a partner can do to position themselves appropriately? And I know, having been at a startup, this is something we got from some carriers. If you're not at least X years old, our CEO said, we can't work with you. You know, how do you put yourself in the right light?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think you got to get to the right people within the company that vet those solutions and actually get to meet the individuals and see the value and the worth of what they're offering and who they are and how they're going to offer it. I think I think, you know, a lot of times when I deal with InsurTech, the biggest challenge I have is they don't really understand me. They don't really understand our claim process. They don't really understand what we're trying to solve. And they spend the majority of their time talking about their tool or their technology or their idea, but they haven't quite figured out how to align it to the business needs or the solve I have. So I guess my advice is, you know, do your homework, really understand the carrier that you're trying to partner with, understand what they, you know, listen to us and find out what it is we're trying to solve, and then come at it from that perspective instead of trying to dazzle us with the new idea or the new piece of technology, right? It's got to be credible and viable so that it really solves our problems too.
Yeah. Daniel, what about for yourself? You know, what are your thoughts on the kind of external innovative pressures that some of the newer companies have? And I know Chubb has made a tremendous investment and kind of drawn a line in the sand about innovation. So what's your experience, and how do you view those startup carriers or other places where innovation is being pushed?
Yeah, as Doug said, I've also been contacted by numerous InsurTech now. I think that's very important to hear. But it's more important to focus in what you are building. Sometimes it's like going to the mall to buy a pair of pants, and then you buy a lot of things, but you don't get your pair of pants. So sometimes you get distracted with so many things, and you don't focus in what you are doing and what you are trying to achieve. So have your vision, have your plan, and focus in that plan is really important. Of course, there will be times that you're going to have to adapt, and new technologies will come, and you can deviate a little bit. But if you start going out of the route all the time, you're not going to get anywhere. So I think that's something that we've been talking a lot in our company. So many options, but you have to keep on the path that you want to be.
Yeah, that focus, I mean, it comes right back to the opening points I think all of you hit on around, why are you even doing this to begin with? What's the customer need? What's the
Yep.
employee need, the partner need? Not just, ooh, look at that tech, because there's always some cool tech that will come up. There's
Yeah.
no way around that. Speaking of which, and we only have a couple minutes left, 4 to be exact. I will say, Doug, you just got a bunch of kudos in the chat for the call out for people to understand insurance better when they come in, know your customer. I mean, we say it for our insureds, right? So we should say it for those who are trying to sell to us. Absolutely. Great point. Stephen Applebaum mentioned a couple of technologies that got a lot of attention in the early days of the pandemic because there was no other way to move the claims flow forward. So one was digital claims payments, and another is reporting and estimating solutions. And I think, Doug, you mentioned this too, where you can't get out or it's going to take a lot longer. So empowering the insureds to move the process themselves, and how do you make that a trusted way to evidence the claim and adjust it? Are there other things that you're seeing popping up that could be promising going forward as well, beyond just the digital evidencing and payment? What are some of the other things going on here? Doug, I might start with you again.
Having trouble finding my mute. Yeah, the whole artificial intelligence, machine learning space of taking processes that are very individually behavior driven, and being able to take those and put them into something that's highly predictable and very consistent. And so that, I just think about it, it fascinates me of artificial intelligence being able to write estimates on cars through pictures, right? It sounded crazy, a while ago, and now it's reality. And so, and that's a time consuming process. It's also heavily driven by how good the individual is. And that's a whole, but a tool makes that smooth, very consistent, and creates a really good starting point for those tougher decisions where that it can't handle. And it allows that human element to finish off that process. So any place that we can find examples like that within the claim process, I think is the focus for the future. We have really manual processes, and there's no reason why we can't use natural language processing and these other types of things to make that better, right?
Yeah. Marcel, I can't think of a better setup for exactly what Shift does than that, and not just the AI, ML on the fraud side, but also the whole claims process, soup to nuts. So share some thoughts about, because you guys are working on this stuff every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, so I definitely share the sentiment that there are some things that have been accelerated. When it comes to fraud, I guess it's less about acceleration. It's more about prioritization. The things we're doing in fraud, this is not a new problem, right? Like automatic estimating maybe turned up about 5 years ago, and it's becoming real. Fraud detection has been done for a while. It's the technology that's changing, but what's driving the discussion at the moment is the impact of the pandemic in an economic sense. And so it's not the fact that we can't be there in person, it's the fact that a lot of people are having a difficult time financially, which creates a flow-on impact on fraud, right? And so a lot of carriers are waking up to the reality that they need to have a really good system in place, and the new systems, which leverage new technologies, can do a lot more for the carriers. I think like there's an hour's discussion at least about all the places in the claims process that automation can help. I think the thing that we focus on is that you have to have the ability to make decisions at some point.
Yeah.
Right. You can do a lot of work on estimation and understanding, but at some point you got to make a decision. And so our big focus is what are the micro decisions in that claims handling process that we can take off the plate of a human being, because they're simple in the simple, like reading a document and understanding the data and validating that it's okay, right? Or putting it in the system. These kind of things are really achievable right now. And we should identify exactly what we want to achieve, just like Daniel was saying, right? What's the exact problem we want to solve it, and then go on to the next problem.
Yeah. Well said. Daniel, you get the last word. No pressure.
Thank you. No pressure. No, I just saw one question that I think that links everything that Doug and Marcel is talking about regarding data. So, and talking to my colleagues in the industry, people are really struggling to get good data. Good data is like a compass. It shows you where you are, right? So I talk about deciding where to go, but if you don't know where you are, you cannot define the path. So something that we are not good at, Chubb, I think we struggle with that, and most of the market struggles with that. Data, we need to pay more attention to our data, the information that we collect, and how we use that information to know where, in overall, right? Customer experience. Thing.
Yeah, so tools to help us sort out this long-standing, centuries-old data problem in the industry. Gentlemen, fantastic conversation. We still have a lot of questions that are unanswered, and I'm sorry to the attendees that we didn't get to more of them. We tried to get through as many as possible. Great questions came in, so thank you everybody for the engagement there. Please do register for the Future of Insurance, November 16th through 18th. I put the link in the chat so you can get to it easily there. Or just search for Reuters Events Insurance, and you will find the Future of Insurance on their site. Thank you again to the panel, to Neil, who's not with us at this point, but fantastic conversation, great insight. Great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
See you later.